Let's go ahead and get things started. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining. As a reminder, in case you're wondering what you're doing here this morning, we're here for a webinar. So today's topic is going to be focused on optimizing operations and scaling your property management business. With us, we have a couple of speakers joining us today that we'll run through, but just really quickly, I wanted to go through a couple notes at the top here. Just please make sure that you have all necessary audio permissions set up so that you can hear. If you can't hear me right now, I don't know why this note is in this slide because I don't know if you would be able to know to fix your audio permissions, but hopefully you're seeing it on the screen. Then as a reminder, you are muted. You're not able to speak during this meeting. However, you are able to submit questions to our panel through the Q&A section that we have had highlighted here. So you can click on that, type your question, submit. You can also see other questions that other attendees have submitted. And if you need to, or if you feel compelled to just ask the same question, you can actually upvote those questions. We'll most likely be trying to answer all of these questions as we go through the presentation. But the ones that with the most upvotes will get answered quicker. So also, as a note, we'll be sharing the recording of the event later via email. So if something comes up and you have to pop off, that's totally okay. We'll be sharing the recording for that. That being said, as a quick introduction, my name is Keaton Cotton. I'm the Director of Customer Success for Guesty for the Americas and APAC. This is my favorite headshot I've ever taken in my life. Like I look like a used car salesman, and I use that joke in every presentation that I have this photo. So it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to have with me two panelists joining us today. From the customer side of things, we have Jean-Paul Godefroy, who's joining us from Huswell. And then from the vendor side of things, we have Jeremy Gall, the co-founder and CEO of Breezeway. So thank you both for your participation today. We'll be hearing more from both of them and as well having them answer a couple of questions later on in the discussion. So just a quick overview of what we're going to be going through today. We're going to start off with just a couple of data points that Guesty's pulled together for as we're really just at the tipping point heading into the summer season in the Northern Hemisphere here, as well as just some other trends that we've been observing that are kind of presenting challenges to our customers. Then we'll go into the presentations by Jean-Paul and Jeremy. They'll kind of present their take on optimizing operations and scaling, both, like I said, from the property management side and also from the vendor side. And then lastly, we'll have that panel discussion where we'll be able to run through all the questions that were submitted beforehand, as well as any questions that have come up during the presentation. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. So the first data point that I wanted to share here is just obviously, like I said, we're headed into the summer months. And as this says, the summer is going to be hot. So we've already seen an increase in reservations being booked at this point when we compare to this exact point in previous years. So in the US, we're seeing 58% more reservations being booked at this point than in 2021 and 69% higher than in 2019 before the pandemic. Similarly, in the UK, we're seeing 104% increase. The UK is buzzing right now, higher than 2021, but still 10% lower than 2019 in the pre-pandemic. So still on the up and up, but not fully back just yet. And then even though this is technically the winter season in Australia that we're heading into, we are 37% higher still than where we were in 2019. Now, continuing on this, just a little more a deep dive into the UK specifically, we're looking at bank holidays and how we've been going about seeing the bookings come through. Even though we're seeing a 12% decrease from this point than we saw in 2021. This is most likely due to the fact that the Jubilee holiday combines with Spring Bank holiday to create an extra long weekend in June, which is likely leading to more people choosing to travel then than during the May Bank holiday. And that's kind of further shown by this 76% increase that we're seeing at this point compared to 2021. Now, I don't want to just focus on all of the positives that we're seeing in the industry right now, because there are a lot of challenges that are coming up, as I'm sure this is no surprise to a lot of you in the audience. We're kind of seeing a global labor shortage that's going on right now. This is impacting a lot of our users in a lot of different ways. So demand is skyrocketing, but recruiting employees to bolster operations in order to meet the surge in bookings has really never been more challenging. This is probably no surprise to you guys. You've probably felt it in one way or another, or know a fellow property manager in the space that has faced this challenge. We're seeing a increase in global job vacancies. This data is from 2021, and we kind of continue to see these trends since then. But I just wanted to make sure we had as concrete of data as possible from, this is a Deloitte report that we pulled this from. In the US, we're seeing 33% higher when compared to Q4 in 2019. In Canada, 9% higher. In Israel, 30% higher. And in Australia, 54% higher. So the supply of open positions is at record levels, but there just doesn't seem to be enough demand that we're seeing. So how do we go about solving that problem? That's where automation comes into play, and that's what today's presentation is all about. What can we do to minimize the impact on the shortage of workers on your day-to-day operations? Automation. So in a sentence, to kind of expand that a little bit more than just one word, you can leverage technology as a force multiplier for your existing staff, creating more efficiency across daily workflows and business processes, thereby enabling the team to focus on the mission critical tasks that you really want to be focused on. So it's going to help you work efficiently with a more lean team, prevent staff burnout, because if there's already a shortage, you don't want to make that problem even worse by just stressing your current employee base out. And then streamlining processes across every facet of your business, trying to see end to end where are areas that I can really optimize and kind of reduce this reliance on labor, since it's not there right now. So as a quick plug, just how does Guesty do this in our system? Guesty's automation tools help you do this, like I said, end to end, anywhere from automated communication with guests, owners, and team members, automating reviews that you're leaving on these different OTAs, automating your revenue management, automating payments instead of having to manually process these payments for any direct bookings that you're processing, automating the assignment of tasks instead of having to deal with sending out reports to your team and following up. Oh, there was actually an alteration here, there was a cancellation here, so that report is no longer accurate. Making sure you have an automated flow that's keeping your team completely in step with what you're doing. And then automating rental agreements and check-in forms to collect necessary data from your guests, and making sure that if you want to prevent anyone from accessing your properties as a pre-stay security measure, we can actually gate automated messages from sending to your customers until they have signed a rental agreement, so that you're a little bit more protected. And then lastly, damage protection through our Guesty Shield service, where you're able to much more readily access a kind of return and coverage from any damages that may be incurred when a guest is staying at your property. So as a quick plug for Guesty again, here's just a testimonial that touched specifically on the automation aspect of it, saying, all right, this user's housekeepers speak Russian, so having a phone application available in 20 plus languages has been great. That's allowed them to streamline that process and kind of expand the options that they have when looking for people to join the team and help them out in running the operation. But before we dive into those questions, I want to hand it over to Jean-Paul from Huswell, who's going to kind of walk through his experience with optimizing his operations at Huswell recently. And so, Jean-Paul, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here and hand it over to you.
Thank you for inviting me on the virtual stage for today. I'm happy to be joined by Jeremy and all the rest. I'm looking forward to tell a little bit more about us. Hi all, my name is Jean-Paul. I'm the founder and CEO of Huswell. We are a Belgium-based company founded in 2019. And as you can see, we say hospitality management done well, or in other words, property management done well. Maybe a little bit about myself. I'm 28 years old. You can add me via this very easy QR code if you'd like to connect with me on LinkedIn. And I always have a very nice quote to say, do what excites, because if you do what excites, you keep on doing that excites. Wonderful. Let's dive into Huswell. With Huswell, we mainly support owners from vacation rentals and apart hotels with their daily operations and the optimization of their property. We try to do this innovatively via data-driven decisions and usage of a broad tech stack, combined with even self-designed revenue strategies. Today, we mainly use OTAs such as Airbnb, Booking.com, Expedia, and TripAdvisor, but we are also an exclusive partner today in Belgium from Homes and Villas by Marriott International, which is, of course, a great addition to our portfolio. All of this support results, of course, in improved profits for our owners, where we try to give them less time investment into their property, way less troubles, and at the same time, very happy guests who had an experience to never forget. This, of course, should result normally, and we are achieving this quite well, in more time for what matters most. As we are quite new, I would love to share some numbers. In 2021, we outperformed the market by 40%. We grew 382% year over year. And today we are rocking with 16 Huswellers who give their best every single day. Absolutely love it. And we are onboarding many more people this year as well. What's then 2022? Of course, Guesty comes in clutch, because without Guesty, we couldn't achieve this. We were aiming at 8.5 million euros in accommodation fare, welcoming a little over 40,000 guests. And as of today, we have about 340 active listings in portfolio. We try to improve this up to 600 listings, once again, using all the features of Guesty and a few of our tech stack items, which I will dive to in shortly, and make sure that we achieve these goals. But I'm looking very much forward. It's possible. We all can do it. And thanks again to Guesty for helping us out. Time to dive into our tech stack. I would love to touch point in two items today. Of course, we can talk very long into our operations and our tech stack, but I've chosen two. One is operation. I think one of the big important items is ensuring that you have enough time making sure that your owners and guests are happy. And as Keegan said very properly, you can do this with automating a specific amount of tasks, while you can cut down on your labor costs or the people on your payroll. We use Breezeway very actively for this. I'm sure Jeremy will touch point on this much more, but it's such an important and basic item to have into your property management company. Automating repetitive tasks, making sure that the data is available and easy accessible for all people within our company. Super important. Next one is one of the items I believe is many times overlooked, is your owners, onboarding new properties. Because without owners, you don't have your guests. And therefore, we use a very specific tool, which is called HubSpot. HubSpot is a very powerful service and marketing and sales tool, but you also have great dashboards, and you can elevate their system to give the best onboarding experience to owners. As of today, we have a very quick insight on how many new listings we are onboarding. Owners do know on every single moment of the day in what phase their onboarding, their listing is being at today. And that gives us a lot of insights and improved partnership with the owner to make sure they stay a client for a very, very long time. It all starts with your owner and then the guests. Of course, we all do this together to make sure that we have the hospitality management done well. If you are interested in talking about many more of these tech stack items, I would love to dive into this. Just feel free to reach out. You can contact me via one of these contact details, or just easily scan the QR code on the screen and you'll be redirected to my LinkedIn. That's about it. 10 minutes fly by. That's amazing. I would love to give the word back to Keegan. Thank you again, once again, for inviting me, and looking forward to your questions and maybe even the panel discussion. Thank you very much.
without further ado, we'll go ahead and hand it over to Jeremy here from Breezeway to kind of give his take on things.
Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks, Keegan and Guesty, for having us. Great to tough act to follow. Jean-Paul's fantastic office and outfit there as I'm up, but a great start from Jean-Paul, and we appreciate them as a client as well. So we're going to take a slightly different tact and position to talk about scaling your business with elevated property care. And there's two things, when I think about sort of the themes that Keegan was bringing up at the beginning of the webinar, we talk about two sort of themes, right? Like, it's getting hot. The summer's going to be hot. Rental activity is up. On our platform, we already see 10 million nights booked for the year that we're helping people prepare for in 2022. So we're all going to be very busy. And so you have on the one hand, you have this market that just continues to grow, a lot of attraction, a lot of interest. And then you have, this professionalism that continues to be the theme. And this is a quote that's up from Miller Hawkins talking about, professionalism has always been important in the industry, and I think we all know that, but it's really becoming more important, taking center stage this year and increasingly in the market. There's a whole bunch of trends that are driving this: convergence with hotels, a lot more attention, a little maturity of the industry. But you take that like high demand, high focus on professionalism and quality, and then you combine that with labor shortages and the need to actually do more and provide more service so that you're doing that concierge. It really puts a strain on the operations so that you focus on efficiency. And automation is a good way to do it, but it's tricky, right? Professionalism, we're in the hospitality business, and hospitality can be highly personalized, it's highly detailed. Sometimes it can be tough to automate all of those things. So automation is a piece of it, but it's about the package of efficiency and how you drive that. Maybe not necessarily replacing people, but thinking about how those people work together and how you can really deliver the experience that you want in the most efficient manner. And so I'm going to spend a few minutes sort of chatting about that, sharing some insights from our property operations report this year, sort of what we see across the market here at Breezeway. So, expectations for professionalism are changing how we care for properties. There's three sort of trends, sub-trends that we think help drive that. One is a modern traveler who, expects more. They're young, they're tech savvy, they're accustomed to getting concierge personalized service. We like to say, if you've heard me speak before, when you become accustomed to on-demand delivery, you can get your groceries delivered in an hour, you can get anything you want at your home, within 2 days, maybe at the latest. That changes your expectation, and you expect that kind of service is going to carry forward into everything that you interact with. And you certainly expect it from the hospitality experience that you're going to have. And that modern traveler is looking for that. Branded experiences. That doesn't just stop at the booking. This is all about what's that real experience when you're at the property, from the amenities to the service, and how you communicate with your host and manager throughout that stay. How you feel at the property. We also like to talk to people about how, 15 years ago, when I was starting to get into this business, it was very transactional. Short-term rentals were very transactional, and the same as long-term rentals. It has moved from a transactional, I'm going to send you my rental agreement, you're going to fill it out, you're going to come pick up the keys, and I'm going to leave you alone, much like a long-term tenant. It has become very experiential, and that matters throughout the whole stay. And we're going to talk about how communication is so important for that. And then the third is, whether we like it or not, pickier owners and our owner clients. We sit, and Jean-Paul talked about this a little bit, we sit at the nexus between the guests and the owners. And you have two constituents and two sets of clients that you have to keep happy. And homeowners are getting pickier. They're getting They're getting more choosy. With all the added attention in the market, there's more competition among property managers. And so they expect more visibility in how you manage the property, how you're caring for their assets, what you're delivering for revenue. And increasingly, they think they could do it on their own. So that's another dynamic that really is pushing the professionalism. Next, so proof is in the numbers. So here's a couple of stats from our 2022 operations survey. No surprise, cleanliness and safety continue to be a major contributing factor to the experience. I think those are table stakes, but as expectations rise, the baseline for cleanliness, not just during COVID, but post-COVID, that continues to rise as well. More questions and demands from guests. We used to hear this a few years ago. You would hear, oh, the Airbnb guest is younger and more demanding, shorter stays, they're always asking me questions. Well, that is now the typical traveler. That might have been an outlier a couple of years ago. That's now the typical traveler, and you have higher demands. Managers agree, they're feeling that this is putting a lot of pressure on their business. So it's not just us saying it, this is what you're all telling us as well. Great. So eliminating manual work and the pain of scheduling, I think this is one of the harder things that hospitality and property managers face, which is not only do you have greater occupancy, right? You might have shorter booking windows. You also have flexible travel. We offer a product where folks can change. You can offer a guest extension, communicate that during the stay. I'm continually shocked by the number of people that will do that. They're on vacation, they're there for 6 nights, they decide, they get an offer to stay an extra day, and they actually take it up. Very popular in drive-to destinations. But that flexibility, or early check-in, late check-out, when everyone is staying at their own unique home, and you don't have 500 fungible hotel rooms, you have unique inventory that everyone fell in love with when they booked, that puts an enormous amount of pressure on your operations as far as scheduling. So it's not just scheduling up front, it's using data, using property care workflows, and communicating those updates throughout the scheduling process. Because anyone who has done this for a living knows you set up your schedule, then you get closer to that, you get closer to a very busy Friday or Saturday, and all your best laid plans disappear, and you have to rework it and reschedule and work through this process again. So thinking about how you handle that, dialing in the tools to do that, super important. We'll move through, so keep us on schedule here. But you have to set your teams up with success. So I think, rather than just hit you with tons of data, we wanted to provide a couple of tips. I think something people should keep in mind and that we hear from our clients is, staffing teams purposefully is so important. Especially when there's a labor shortage, you have to think about how you're going to layer in external staff, off-season work, purposeful seasonal staff, and mix those two together and make those transitions. You have to make it easy for your team to execute on your brand standards. We spend a lot of time at Breezeway working on that with checklists and trainings and how you can really dial in and make sure people know what it's like to get the job done right and they understand the expectations. And another tip, a good way to do that is, it's not just your owners who want to know a lot of information or your guests. Think about your staff, how you can share guest ratings, scores, task times. Think about how you can incentivize your staff and how you can eke out some efficiency and some improvements there by showing appreciation, especially in a labor shortage, reducing attrition. Nobody wants to lose great staff. So don't forget about how a lot of the staff that's in the field is the face of your brand. It's worth it to empower them with optimized tools so they can execute on behalf of your brand for you. Next, operations data. I think a couple of points here, you can reduce, think about messaging and guest messaging and how you build that into your operations tech stack. Not just a way to improve your communication with the guest, but as a way to reduce operational issues, right? We've seen lots of clients have success where they're using that messaging up front They're being much more forward and sharing more information, data about the property to reduce questions and issues that they might get later. Be very forward with that. I stayed with Natural Retreats in Montana a few weeks back, and the Wi-Fi code was by the front door when I came in. It was taped underneath the television in the living room. It was on the refrigerator on a magnet in at least 3 places on the first floor, because they know that the thing everybody wants to know is what is the Wi-Fi, what's the Wi-Fi code and password so that we can get started. So think about that. Try to think about how you're going to get ahead of that. And then use data. This can power personalized welcome messages, in-stay recommendations. People love this. People love to be treated special, and there's ways that you can mix, maybe we'll get into this in the conversation, ways that you can mix automation with a level of personalization that still feels like you're delivering high-touch concierge service at the right moment to the right guest. That's the trick. 2 more slides from me and we'll wrap it up. When it comes to owners, I love this concept, which is like managing up to showcase the value and boost owner retention. Picky owners, I promise you, they do not know how much work you are doing on their behalf. So clue them in, be transparent and help them understand all the work that it is you're doing. This will help put them at ease. This will change your conversation with them. It won't be, it changes any combative nature or questioning, curious nature from owners when you help them understand all the work that's actually happening to take care of their property. And I promise you, very few of them actually want to do all that work themselves. So that's another good tip that we've seen be highly successful. You can also manage up and owner retention by leveraging systems to make that owner feel special. Help them understand what it is you're going to do for their property and how you're going to prepare it every day and every time they come, so that when they show up, there's no surprises. They feel like you care about them, and that's really what it's all about. Revenue can continue to grow as the market grows, but it's about making sure they know you care about their property. We're Breezeway. I'm the founder of Breezeway. My name's Jeremy Gall. We build smart tools for property care and guest communication. We work with folks like Jean-Paul, who I'm proud to call a client, and we partner with great folks like Keegan and Guesty so that people can optimize their systems. And I'm really looking forward to the discussion that's going to follow this.
Great. Thank you, Jeremy, so much. So I want to just go ahead and get started with our panel here. So I'm curious, in this is obviously going to be kind of, we're going to have to get an answer from both sides here, because I want to hear the property manager side of this, and then I want to see the vendor side of this as well. So a question that we're seeing as we're talking about optimizing these tech stacks and getting these lean teams, obviously that has an impact on your day-to-day, and that changes what your workflow looks like, and on a broader spectrum, it might even have impacts on kind of your team dynamics. So my question to both of you and Jeremy, this may be more like, what have you had exposure to through working with partners that are property managers? How has your day-to-day changed since optimizing your tech stack and operations? Like where were you focusing before that you're now kind of running that in the background and are able to focus on other pieces and what are those pieces that you're focusing on today?
Jeremy?
Yeah, I'll go first, maybe with a global view, and then Jean-Paul can sort of he can tell us in practice how it's affecting him, which I think is interesting. I think what we see across the market is folks are, when you can optimize your tech stack and you can think about how this really, is dialed in and fits your business, it gives you the opportunity to move from being constantly reactive and putting out fires and running around to being proactive. And as soon as you sort of tip the scale from reactive to proactive, you're much better positioned to actually provide a hospitality experience, because you can get in front of some of these issues. And when you're running around and your hair's on fire, it's really hard to care about anybody else. It's hard to care about your guests. It's hard to care about your owners, because you're just trying to get through the day, or you're trying to get through the season. So this tech optimization, what people are really getting for it is like, wait, I've got a little more breathing room so that I can actually be proactive and deliver the kind of service that I want. So my biggest tip, like for people who are listening, is like, don't jump straight away to how many people am I going to replace with these tools? What's the hard ROI in like labor savings per unit? How many more units can I manage with the same number of people? That will all happen and it will all come. But first start to think about, I'm going to give myself the breathing room to actually operate the way that I want to operate my company.
100%. I think Jeremy nailed it there. For us as property management companies, it's important that you mainly focus on ensuring that your maintenance and cleaning, the repetitive tasks that are being done there, are automated, because it solves so much time, and they are fairly easy. And it all starts with this. We see it. You have 3 horizons. It's called Horizon 1, 2, and 3. And your operations should be in Horizon 1, which means that it runs smoothly, and it's going to save you time, which you can then use in other more important areas. Breezeway is a very, very important system for this. Last month, we had 1,000 checkouts. Back in the days, we had to manually add 1,000 repetitive cleaning tasks to specific people, which would cost one of my employees quite a lot of time. These days, it's automated. Investing a few days or a few weeks into finding the right solution and making these repetitive, bulky tasks automated is one of your biggest drivers on opening more time in for your employees and for yourself as well, on working on the business and working for your guests and for your owners.
Jean-Paul, what are some of the things that you're referring to? What are the tasks that you're able to focus on with your guests and with your owners that previously you may have been more muddied down because you had to focus on the operations aspect of things?
Yeah. Well, of course, we are talking quite a lot of operations here today. It starts with cleaning and maintenance items. These are 2 very big components of a property management company, of a hospitality management company, and it starts with just general checkout cleanings, but it goes also to inspections, maintenance reports from a guest that come in and needs to be solved or need to be hand out to a specific handyman who is going to solve it. These are normally quite standard and follow quite an easy workflow, which you can automate very, very easily. Do this, work on it, and you can free up your time once again to more important or other items.
And what would you say are those kind of more important items that you're freeing time up for?
Well, for us, of course, I'm always a big fan of saying, without owners, we don't have guests. I believe we within this industry, we need to put a lot of focus as well on the owners. We have done it to the guests, which is fantastic and great. There are so many important systems running around already for your guests, but the owner side is a very big missing component in many companies. And you need to keep them as long as possible, because if you lose an owner, it's going to cost you much more than adding new ones. So as soon as you have started acquiring people, elevate and use your tech stack to keep those clients a partner as long as possible.
Yeah, I think that's really. Absolutely. I think that's interesting. It's, if we were doing a poll, if we were asking a poll to the group, do you feel like you're giving enough attention and time to your owners? It's like something has to give, right? And I think typically for hospitality property managers here in the vacation rental space, it's like that's what ends up getting. It's like, okay, we got to deal with the guests. We don't have any choice. And now we got to keep dealing with the guests. We got to do more service with the guests, and we got to increase our amenities, and we got to do more with the properties. And yeah, we got to pay attention to the owners, but if they peel back the onion, I think most people would say, boy, I had to sacrifice something, and I constantly feel like I'm sacrificing my time with owners, and I wish I was devoting a little more time to them, but I just don't have it. And I think that's really interesting what Jean-Paul said. Like, we hear that a lot that, it's like, if I could just have a little more time with owners and how I manage my supply inventory, my relationships, like I would spend it there.
Great. Now, I want to jump into a question for Jean-Paul specifically, because a lot of the automation that we've been talking about today from the operations standpoint, we've been talking about cleaning and maintenance. But before that question, I just wanted to make a note. I'm seeing more people raise their hands. So just as a note again, if you have a question that you want to submit, go ahead and click that Q&A box, and you can go ahead and submit the question there, and we'll go ahead and address it as they come in. Thank you very much. So Jean-Paul, so like I said, we've been focusing a lot on cleaning and maintenance, right? But there's another element to automation here. I mean, several other elements, but automation of guest reviews, automation of messaging to guests. These are great ways to kind of streamline the conversation, but are almost tiptoeing on a bit of a tightrope of, am I edging too much into the space of fully automation and losing that guest experience that I'm looking to hone in on. So with an increasing ability to automate guest facing tasks, how do you ensure that guests are still getting that personal service? And yeah, essentially, how are you still getting that human touch in play?
Once again, a very good question, Keegan, and mainly with the increasement of automations and software taking over daily tasks, it's important that you keep the personal touch. There's a few options you can use, and it all differs per property management company again. But I think we have two main items that we try to look at. One is tone of voice. The way you are speaking to your guests and to your owners is a very important component of feeling interacted with your guests. If you're typing very straightforward, plain answers, it's not personal anymore, and it feels automated. So even automated messages can be written very personally and in a very friendly tone. It might be, once again, a little investment upfront on having these textures written, but it pays back so much more. Guests these days don't like the automated systems because everything is automated, which is that part. The other item we try to do is our position against guests, how we position ourselves, who is Huswell and what are we going to provide the guest. So we more say that we are a co-host than really managing the property is ourselves. We help the owner with providing the best possible experience. We try to elevate the experience for the guest as possible, so people know exactly what our position is, and then they can assume much easier and much better what they can expect.
Awesome. I'm very interested in that kind of approach you just mentioned there of thinking of yourself as more of a co-host than the property manager working kind of for the property owner. And it seems like, Jeremy, when you're speaking a little bit about owner communication, you struck a chord with some people in the crowd, because I saw a couple of questions come through specifically about owner communication. So it seems like a couple of people in the audience are saying, what specifically do you think should be the attention of owners? What's the right amount of transparency to provide, especially Jean-Paul in your case as kind of this co-host approach, and Jeremy, just in your experience in positioning Breezeway as a value add for your customers to their owners? What's the right level of transparency to have them see things and gain your confidence without, as Denai has said in the question here, without feeling like a big brother is breathing down your neck, kind of watching everything you do and waiting for you to trip up almost?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's why I love that. That's why I love that phrase, managing up, right? It's not just sharing the information, but it is still continuing to manage the relationship with the owner. So you have to walk a fine line, right? You don't want all of a sudden you're sharing information with the owner and then they are right there with you hand in hand, right? Where all of a sudden they're getting involved in the nitty gritty. You want to keep them at bay at some level. I think it's about, think about the fact that it needs to be more than the accounting statement. That owners care more than just about the accounting statement, and the bottom line minus your maintenance expenses and and your commission. You're trying to be somewhere better than that, and not having them paying attention to every little thing and every decision that happens in the property. And like somewhere in between that is, I'm going to clue you in that like this is our regular program. Maybe I'm going to create more materials and I'm going to tell you more about our regular program. Now that I'm saving time on some cleanings and maintenance work, I can promote my inspection program. So I can tell you more about how we look at your properties and we keep track of them. And I'm just providing more detailed, almost like marketing material about what our property care program is like and what you can expect. And then on request, if you've got information, we're happy to share, maintenance work reports. Like you can spit out, certainly from Breezeway and I'm sure other systems, you can spit out nice looking branded reports to let people know what you just did at their property and share those, on a quarterly basis, on a monthly basis if you really needed to. So I think it's about that manage up, find some middle ground. You don't want them, you don't want them hand in hand with your maintenance team or your cleaning team. You just want them to understand what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. I think Jeremy has a very, very fair point. You need to find the average amount of information you want to share. One of our core values is transparency. But once again, you also need to be able to maybe improve the amount of transparency or decrease the amount of transparency based on the owner. It's impossible to find one solution fits every single owner. That's impossible. We have some owners who don't bother anything about it and they just want to make sure their property is managed correctly and they want to receive their funds. Other people just want to know what's going on out of curiosity, etc. But being able to provide this data to your owners on a personalized level, but of course making sure that you don't give everything away and they will start being like a big brother is an important decision and an important line you need to make yourself as a company. If not, you will be sending out emails every single week and saying, hey, we have done this, this, and this, and they will have questions, done this, and you're more doing, more sending out your transparency and data, which is unnecessary for your owner at that point, and sometimes a little bit a waste of the time.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to drop. I think we've seen over the years, the best hospitality and property managers are not afraid to drop the bottom % of owners. Yep. Who are really, really difficult, who we talk a lot about revenue management in this industry, but don't forget about profitability. Don't forget that really difficult owner who is constantly on you or whose property they don't maintain to a high enough standard. So you're constantly in there doing maintenance requests and it just carries more of a burden for your team operationally. Don't be afraid that if they're not worth it to let them go. Let them be somebody else's burden.
Yeah, totally agree.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you both for sharing your thoughts on that. I want to kind of pivot a little bit back to automation. As we were talking about it, we talked about automation in the space of task management, maintenance, and cleaning. We talked about automation as it pertains to guest-facing automation and how to make sure that you're not leaning too far into seeming like a robot that's talking to a guest, and more they're aware that it is kind of enhancing their experience. There's another element to automation that's a little more nuanced here. I'm interested to hear both of your takes on this. In an increasingly digital world, people want to automate, everything, right? And so at a certain point, though, when do you stop building your tech stack? Is there such a thing as too many elements that are in play here that you're over automating things or over complicating things because of all the different pieces that you're trying to mishmash together? What's your guys' experience been in that realm, and what do you find is kind of the sweet spot in terms of size of tech stack?
I'll take this one maybe first, Jeremy. It's something we experience ourselves, so it's quite a nice topic to talk about. Of course, adding tech is an important item, and there's nothing wrong with testing and trying out, but you need to also have the knowledge about cutting off some tech items. You can test them, you can try them, but don't hang on to them. and you can test them, but always try to look further and maybe find some other solution that combines some of the tech stack items. A lot of these days you find people adding for every single item some sort of software system. I think there's great options out there for cleaning management and maintenance management, and even inspections and supply management. But try to find items or software systems just like Breezeway that centralize these systems into one platform. I think that's becoming much more important. You see it in the industry as well. People are centralizing specific items within this industry to become more of a centralized system. So yes, you can over tech stack yourself 100%. You can test it. I totally agree, but also make sure that you cut off some systems if they are becoming a burden.
Yeah, I think that's right on target. We often talk to folks about how they need to, and I think this goes back to that, like, can you over automate as well? Can you over optimize? Can you over automate, just as you said, Keegan? And I think we talk to people about, like, look, you should take stock of your business and your brand and the experience that you're trying to provide, and spend a little time, before your next season or in your next, tech shopping season, whenever that is, and map it out a bit and think about the different parts of your business and what's most important to you and what you're going to get the most benefit for optimizing and spending tech on, and then see where the overlap is, so that you're not, you don't want 30 different point solutions to optimize such small granular pieces of your business, unless one of those pieces and granular things is so important to your identity and so important to the experience. Otherwise, map it out, then try to find some commonality and really take the time to understand how these different pieces work together. Do your homework. That's what
absolutely. I say. Absolutely. That's what every adult wants to hear, is do your homework. Everyone just starts sweating, like, I thought I was done with this, please. So I want to kind of dig one layer deeper to automation here. We've been talking about automation very, very much in detail about all these different angles, like I said, and even the risks of over automation. But I feel like when we've been talking about automation, it's been very, very much kind of A to B, right? A reservation is created, we create a cleaning task. A reservation is created, an automated message is sent to the guests, welcoming them and thanking them for booking with you. But there's another layer to this, to kind of bring back the big brother piece of it here, which is guest data. Right? We're able to collect guest data and have that play a role in automation for your operation. So my question to both of you is, what role do you feel collecting guest data plays in optimizing your operations, and how can property managers use this data to deliver exceptional guest service?
I'll go.
Take yours. All yours, Jeremy.
Okay, yeah, I'll go. Then you can correct me if I'm wrong, Jean-Paul. I think it's about catering to the stay, right? I think there's a unmet opportunity still, and we think there's a lot of room for growth where managers can be better about leveraging guest data to personalize the experience a little bit. And I don't think it takes too much, right? Like, on the one hand, for operations, you can think about, depending on how many people have been there and how long they've been staying, what should I really expect this cleaning task should take, and how can I dial that in a little more, right? Should be different operational burden. So there's certainly some operational ways you can leverage that, but I think it's just a little bit more about, hey, I've opened up a dialogue with you, we are communicating more, I'm part of your experience for the stay. Let me keep track of some of the things that are important to you. Let me start to build like a slight profile about you. None of us want to know what Facebook and Google's profile of us actually is, because, we'll be disappointed most likely about our true selves. But build a little interaction with the guest. It doesn't take much to then add a little personalization to the experience. If they have kids, if they're staying for travel, if it's business, etc. And I think you'll be rewarded for it. But Jean-Paul is going to have a better answer than that.
100% correct, Jeremy. I think elevating the guest experience with guest data is an important item these days. Everyone wants a personalized service, but it's impossible to deliver a personalized service if you don't have the guest data. So being able to collect this data is, I believe, a very important item within the guest journey. And until today, there are very many aspects within collecting this guest data that are somewhat inconvenient, but we need to fill in a form. You need to fill in your first name, your last name, your phone number, maybe even your birth date. And it's still a little bit odd to the industry, while we do it daily on Facebook and Instagram, etc. And people don't acknowledge the fact that they already have given it out on the internet, but giving it to us for improving their experience is still a little bit difficult. So I believe that guest experience platforms such as Juve and Guesty has amazing check-in form to be used to collect guest data. Needs to be elevated, and it needs to be more explained to guests why they need to provide this data. It's in their benefit, and it's not to do bad things. It's in their benefit to ensure that they have the best stay and best experience with us.
I think that's a really, really great point, Jean-Paul, because I think when we all hear about data sharing, and I mean, Jeremy, you spoke to, and when we're talking about Facebook, social media, Google, other larger tech companies, it's almost scary when you think about the amount of data that's known about you and what it's being used for. But in this case, it's actually being used to make their experience better. There is no real dark side to it, and sometimes just straight up communicating that is a great way to acknowledge the elephant in the room and be like, hey, I know you may be like, why do you need my birthday? But trust us, we want to send you an offer that is going to allow you to come stay with us if you want to get away for your birthday or something like that, just to make it clear that you are not ill-intended in trying to collect this data from these guests. Awesome. All right. Well, I think that just about does it for today. I believe we ran through everyone's questions, but if anyone does have any additional questions, like I said, we'll be sharing this presentation after the fact. And so if you want to rewatch and any additional questions do come up, please feel free to reach out. Our contact information is in the deck, but mine's fairly easy. It's just Keegan@guesty.com. So if you have any questions that came up, either from Guesty's functionality or any partnerships, or just wanting to learn more about opportunities like these, where you can come and kind of listen to other panelists, absolutely reach out to us, and we'd be happy to have you and happy to answer all your questions. But thank you again to Jean-Paul and Jeremy for joining us today. Very, very much appreciated having you both. And hopefully you all had a good time as well. And we hope to have a good rest of your day.
Thank you very much.